Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan for another Inside the Birds. Now, we're in the middle of doing our annual NFC East preview series with Greg Cosell. We've already done the Dallas Cowboys. We got three more teams left. I think everybody knows who those three teams are, but we're also continuing our Inside the Birds podcast. And in this one, Adam, we are going to talk about players who are under the microscope in 2025 on offense. Now, not under the radar like we did like a week and a half ago. That's a different category. This is who's entering 2025, who is going to be most under the microscope this season. And when I think about that, Adam, I think about a player I remember being really under the microscope. This is way back when, after 2 years of not being a very productive second-round pick. And then he had a wonderful breakout year 3, which is when guys are usually under the microscope. His name is Vinny Curry. And he wound up re-signing a nice extension and then being a big part of the Eagles' first Super Bowl title in 2017. And we're going to have Vinny on with us this week for our Patreon members as part of our Ask an Eagle live stream that we do once a month with a former Eagles player, coach, or front office exec. And Vinny's awesome because he's around the team. He played not only for the Eagles, but also the Jets. He's always been in the New Jersey area. He's a New Jersey guy, grew up an Eagles fan, and again, wins a Super Bowl with the team, came back to play for the team after he played for the Bucs, and just still maintains a lot of close friendships. He's at the he'll be at the Jason Kelsey, celebrity bartending thing. He's supposed to be there down in Oceans or Sea City. So I'm looking forward to this. I think our Patreon members, Adam, are going to have a fun time because Vinny, you've met him before. You know him. He's a real character.
Yeah, in fact, I'm thinking I might have been there for his first ever interview in-house with the Eagles when Dave Spadaro had him on. And he was walking through the building.
Mm-hmm.
Either it was after draft or it was either right after the draft, like within a couple days or maybe a couple weeks after it. But you have to remember, as you well know, you were covering the team closely then, as he grew up an Eagles fan. But literally big-time Eagles fan. Knew who Mel Reese was. Like, he went over the people he knew who worked for the Eagles that he was aware of. It was pretty amazing to me. And then he, as you mentioned, he wound up being a second-round pick and a productive one, and part of that edge rush group for the 2017 Super Bowl team.
Yeah, and it didn't start off great for Vinny. Him and Brandon can tell similar stories, different but similar, of just, getting drafted high for Vinny in the second round. Jim Washburn had his guys. He had Trent Cole, who obviously deserved to start, and then Jason Babin for a couple of years running that wide 9. Yeah. And, obviously it was at the end of the Andy Reid era, and things weren't working real well, especially in run defense. And Vinny finally got his opportunity in year 3 when they, did a little bit of coach overhaul, and when he got in, he played well, and he wound up being a very, very good run defending defensive end, and also had 9 sacks in year 3. So he was a dual way player. But when you think about 2017, you think about him being on first and second down with Jernigan and Fletcher Cox and BG, and they were really good against the run that year, and that allowed them to get into that NASCAR pass rush package and just tee off on quarterbacks.
So the group that he came in with in 2012, he was a second-round pick in 2012 out of Marshall. The guys who were there, the 2 guys you mentioned, Trent Cole and Babin, were ahead of him. They were on the 43 front, wide 9, a lot in passing situations. Darryl Tapp, who's now an assistant coach in the NFL. I believe it's with Washington. I think he's their D-line coach, without looking it up last time I looked. I saw one of these games. I thought it was Washington last year. Philip Hunt, who got off to a good start, then suffered a major knee injury and was never the same. And of course, BG. So, yeah, that was a pretty interesting group when he was drafted in 2012.
Absolutely. I'm sure it'll be a lot to talk about. So that's one of the great reasons to be a Patreon member. That's patreon.com/InsideTheBirds, our monthly Ask an Eagle. We do Ask Greg Cosell sessions every week during the season. We also, of course, have all of our podcasts up early and without any commercials or ads. So you get it early, you get it ad-free. And membership to our Discord community, Ask ITB live streams. You get to ask questions to us, usually Adam, and even get some extra intel on that as well. So patreon.com/InsideTheBirds to sign up and become a member. All right, so let us talk about some Eagles who are under the microscope on offense. We'll get into defensive ones in a different podcast. The first one I think is really obvious, and it's sort of like the same thing we were talking about with Vinny about when it's year 3, it's time for you to make your mark. Doesn't matter what the context was. For Vinny, it was 2 guys starting over him that was out of control, and for this guy Tyler Steen, who we're going to talk about. It doesn't matter that he got hurt and lost his job and Mekhi Becton played really well. It's year 3 now, Adam. So he's got the opportunities, the lead horse here in the race to be a starter at right guard, and he's got to seize it.
I mean, right now he's the favorite going to training camp. And look, they thought heading into their offseason program last year that he would be the starter there. And unfortunately, he got hurt, never got a chance to get the job. Mekhi Becton, who was signed to be a swing tackle, right backup right and left tackle, took the reps at right guard and never gave it up. It's one of those things, man. Can't help the club in the tub. You're not available, and it wasn't promised to you. It was one thing if he had been a first round pick. That's a different story. He probably would have been given a chance to get his job or get the job back if he ever had it. But he never got it, and now once again he'll enter training camp this time as a starter, whereas he didn't last year. It was their hope was that he would start, but he never really got a chance to compete for it. Now it's him. The backup plan would be Matt Pryor. We'll see about Kenyon Green, who they cross-trained at left guard and right guard. But really, it's Tyler Steen, who was a tackle in college. Sometimes it doesn't work out when teams do this. It's just a different mindset. You're playing in that phone booth. You're playing inside. The technique's different. It's more of a power position. And, he's a quiet guy from talking to people and scouting around the league who scouted him and, know about the player. But, stout, coaches hard. This is a big deal for him. You're absolutely right. This is year 3 of a 4-year rookie deal. This is, to me, it's kind of it. If he doesn't win the job, I don't know what they would do because they don't right now. They've got Miles Hinton, who could play right or left. Kendall Lamb just for this season, backup right or left. Cameron Williams is developmental, probably right tackle. And then you've got Darian Kennard, who we've talked about. So he really needs to win this. And if he doesn't, that would not be good for his future.
No, I was actually just thinking that if he doesn't win the job, don't you think it's kind of hard to see him seeing year 4? I mean, if you're a backup 3 years into a 4-year deal, we've seen Howie Roseman make moves and, talk about if I'm not going to give this guy an extension, then, I may have to move on. So it would, to me, if he doesn't either start or play a significant number of win the starting job at some point in the season, year 4 becomes a big question mark. And then also the whole right guard situation. I mean, you have 4 of your 5 positions pretty much locked down, but you're now working. You're on your 4th right guard in 4 years, no matter who gets it. And then in 2026, you might talk about your 5th in 5 years.
Yeah, I mean that's really not what you want. And I know Drew Kendall could play guard, but he really is a center. To be honest with you, we'll talk about him later. Right. But this is a big deal here for Steen, and he really needs to see it and seize it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he'll be given every opportunity, so it'll be up to him to seize it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to other positions on offense. We'll talk about running back, and this is sort of fascinating. You have an in-house guy who's got a lot to prove, got under the microscope this year, but also someone that they brought in. So let's start with the newcomer, A.J. Dillon, because for him, it's really about that neck, making sure he's healthy, and then even if healthy, then you have to be the player that you were prior to your injuries. We saw last year or 2 years ago, I should say, where Rashad Penny was healthy, but he didn't have the explosion. I remember we started to get intel on this, and it was like not an issue about health. It was just he wasn't that guy anymore because of all the injuries he had gone through, but the explosion wasn't there. I remember someone saying, when they run a wide zone and he turns the corner, they could just don't see that juice on the corner turn. So you got to wonder about A.J. Dillon now. Yeah,
I mean, if it's a toss right, Dillon's got to cut it up in there and get upfield. We know he's not a 4-4 guy, but he's a specific type runner. They brought him in here. If Barkley can't play, they need somebody to handle a large volume of carries. That would be the guy, not Shipley. Shipley's not really built for 15 to 18 carries a game, not at this level. Dillon was, and they hope that he is again, but we're not going to know that until training camp. You could make the argument because of the importance of the position that Dillon might have the bigger microscope on him than Steen, because if Barkley gets hurt, and let's say he's out 3 or 4 games, they got to be able to
Mhm.
run the football. Now, things might change. They might pass the ball more. But if you get a lead, and the big reason why he was signed is so you don't have to wear down Barkley. He doesn't have to take every carry in every game if they're up big. That's where Dylan could come in and finish it off. You want him as a closer if you can, but we got to see what he looks like in training camp. It's a pretty big deal here.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really big deal. And, if he's healthy and productive, he could combine with our next guy, Will Shipley, along with Saquon Barkley to give the Eagles some real different kinds of body types and skill sets. And that could be a really nice, listen, we know that Barkley's going to get most of the workload, but you would like to see Barkley not have to handle as much as last year. We already gave people the stats on how infrequent it is in the NFL to see a guy get 375 touches in back-to-back years. So there should be plenty of opportunities for both if they both make the team. Will Shipley will make the team, Adam, but he's under the microscope because to us, he's the one that if he can develop some skills and enhance them, probably can come closest to serving that Kenneth Gainwell role of being able to protect, pass protect, blitz pick up, catch the ball out of the backfield, 2-minute drill, 4-minute drill type of guy.
Their hope is that Shipley could take some of that. He's going to have to prove it in training camp. It's one thing if you worked on it in OTAs, but it's another thing when the pads come on, you got to be physical. And you also, by the way, you want to see him do it in the preseason. So just to give you an idea of how little he played last season, Shipley only had 30 carries. So now that's going to go way up if he's healthy. That when I say way up, double it would be way up. Maybe he could do that, or if not more. Now he is explosive. He's got not only straight line speed, but Andrew and I saw it in training camp last year. His ability to take the ball and turn it upfield. But the difference between him and Gainwell, it was like night and day in terms of explosiveness and be able to turn your hips and get upfield. And that's what you're looking for as a changeup. When he comes in, because Barkley has his specific style, that's what a changeup does. He gives you something different from your starter.
Absolutely. And we see some really good teams that have the ability to have a changeup and just keep that defense off balance a little bit is really vital.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be the most explosive guy. Like Gainwell, again, wasn't all that explosive, surprisingly. He just gave the defense a different look. And, Andrew DeCecco's done a great job really getting to know Will Shipley through the rookie diary. And one thing that Will said in his exit interview, he told Andrew, he talked to the coaches about, was that he was going to start day one on working on getting bigger, stronger, getting his pass protection, getting his – it's not just bigger and stronger, though. We talk about this a lot. Blitz pickup has to do with recognition and sorting and being in the right spot and then having your technique right to take on the incoming pass rusher. So it's not all just big and strong. It's a lot of it is upstairs and just recognizing what teams and coordinators typically like to do. There are some that, like Vic, they don't blitz a whole lot, so you don't maybe have to study him as much. There are guys like, remember when Wink Martindale was the defensive coordinator? You really got to you got to not only know that they're coming, but where they're coming from, who's actually coming from what angle. Spagnuolo is another guy who does that. He shows you one thing, gives you a totally other thing. So there's some experience factor that comes into that.
Plus, with sim pressures, you got to figure out who's coming and who's going.
Right.
That's another, and that's called post snap sorting. You got to figure that out. That's not easy, and there's a mental gymnastics part about it. So, look, this is a big off season for him, and training camp and preseason. And by the way, he also could return kicks. He actually did pretty well. He only had 6 kicks for about 29 yards per return.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. Look, we expect Avery Williams to win it, but he's also. We'll get to him in a minute. Like he didn't do much in their offseason program because he was hurt.
Right.
So those jobs are open right now, the kick and punt return jobs.
Sure. All right, let's go back to the offensive line. And he's just a rookie, 5th-round pick, but squarely under the microscope because he can snap the ball. And we're talking about Drew Kendall, who has a really good opportunity at him. He'll make the team, but he's got an opportunity to prove that if there's an injury to Juergens and he has to come out of the game or miss a week or two, that they don't need to slide Landon Dickerson over if they believe that he can go in and play a little bit ahead of his rookie year of seasoning.
Right, because think about it. If Juergens can't play and they move Dickerson in, then who are you putting in there? Trevor Keegan, Kenyon Green, Matt Pryor. That's not good.
Right.
You already have Steen, who's inexperienced, so that's just not that's not a good thing. Other than obviously Pryor has experience. You could get away with it for a couple games, but Drew Kendall needs to win this backup center job. Yes, they have Brett Toth. He is competing for it, no doubt. He took a decent amount of ones because of Juergens was coming back from his back surgery. But bottom line is Drew Kendall's drafted to be the backup center. He's under the microscope. Like he's got to show that he's ready to take that job.
Yeah, I was actually going to make fun of you for mentioning Pryor. Who's the left guard? Keegan and the other guy before you even said Brett Toth. And Brett Toth is the first team center in OTAs, but we know that that's a very, very uphill climb. So, you think the bloodlines help guys like this?
Oh, it was Dad Pete. Yeah. Well, see,
it's not like they played the same position, so that's why.
Right. Well, Pete was a center, right? It was center or guard. Was he both?
I thought he was guard. Did he snap? I'd have to go back and check.
Yeah, he might. Yeah, I think he was guard. Right, with the Jets and a couple other teams, Seattle. But the bottom line is with Drew Kendall, they drafted him to be their backup center. Now the question is, there's a core strength question. I know I'd heard from a scout from another team who was just telling me, give me what he had from his area, and then Drew Kendall. He said he could understand why Philly drafted him to be the backup center. That would make sense. But always understand he was a 5th-round pick for a reason. He wasn't a 3rd-round pick. There's a reason why teams saw him as a backup. So backups typically, when they're ready, could give you 3, 4, maybe 5 games. But now the one thing about Juergens is you go back to Nebraska, he's had a lot of injuries. Very talented player. He's been a good story development, got his extension, but he's had some problems with injury.
Yeah, and by the way, Pete Kendall was a center for a year in 2003. He was 30 years old, and
there you go.
He was already in the league for about 8 years before, but he played center for the Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals, 2003.
Cardinals?
And
really?
then, he was there for 3 years. I totally forgot about it.
Jeez.
And then a little bit with the Jets in 2005 as well. So
yeah, I remember him with the Jets. Right. Yeah. Well, and he went to Boston College too, correct?
Correct. So
he didn't
probably a help there in that regard. All right. Another guy. I love this because I couldn't agree more. A guy who very much under the microscope among the wide receivers is Johnny Wilson. And it's probably because I feel like at his best, Adam, if he can really develop, I mean, he can offer you something with that size and the already built-in ability to block. And we were told he doesn't just block. He that's why he was used as kind of a blocking wide receiver / tight end, because he can block your ass off. But if he can just learn to use that big body to separate, contested catch, find ways to get open, you can use him in the red zone, Adam. I mean, I feel like there's good usage opportunity for him as a number 3 receiver or a backup outside. I know
he won't be the 3. I mean, it's gonna be Dotson's job.
A backup out, not the backup, top backup, just one of the backups on the outside, because he wasn't outside receiver in college.
Although now this is going way out there, but Dotson's this is the funny of his rookie contract. They don't have a future 3. Like they don't know who that would be. Like they'll get past the season and then they'll worry about it. Because that's the thing about this receiver position for the depth. Terrace Marshall, 1-year deal. We'll get back to Johnny Wilson in a second. Nice Smith, we'll talk about him in a minute. Danny Gray, who we're excited about him, but he hasn't proven anything. So they don't have a future 3, and it could be anybody who may not be on the roster. It could be Johnny Wilson, and Johnny Wilson could also be off the roster after the season. So
couldn't you also see him situationally though as like a situational X where you throw the ball? If he develops a good contested catch ability, right? You throw the ball up 20, 30 yards downfield against some coverage and see if he can come up with it.
Yeah, well, he's got to get better separation. That's the issue with him.
Yep.
Now, he's a guy that, when active, was playing on special teams. He was there to block. It's funny. He actually played he played almost he actually played over a third of the offensive snaps. But he was just there to block. That's what we called him, a blocking receiver. That's all he really did. But man, with that enormous size, no, there's no talk. I know people keep asking. No, they're not thinking of him as a tight end right now. Maybe after this season they do, when they only have one under contract, if no one.
Yeah, not while they have 7. They have 7.
Yeah, no, there's 7 on which is ridiculous. Right, exactly. That's why they don't need to do it. But Johnny Wilson is over 6'6". He was at 230 plus range. Straight line speed, like he he can move a little bit, but man, but with pads on, he looks mechanical. He's very long, and it takes him a while to get open. Look, the bottom line is here, when you look at their backup receiver group, after Dotson, the number 4 job, we mentioned Terrace Marshall, okay, who opened some eyes in offseason. Nia Smith is an inside receiver only. Elijah Cooks was unfortunately hurt in their offseason program. We mentioned Danny Gray, who could run. Avery Williams is a novelty specialty player. Then you got 3 undrafted free agents. We'll talk more about them in training camp, assuming they're going to be there. So that, boy, you want to talk about an opening? So that 4 job is open. It's maybe Wilson's the incumbent, but it's sure as heck no lock that he wins it.
Right, but he will be fun to watch this summer. I mean, that whole competition will be fun. His size and traits make him somebody that you want to keep your eyes on.
Yeah, for sure. Big dude.
All right, guess what, everybody? The summer weather is here. When the summer's here, and boy, is it here, you're going to want to be outdoors and get that important exercise in. And to do that, you want to feel better. So now is the time to get your free 30-minute stretch. No obligations. It's a free 30-minute stretch. You can sign up in 3 different ways. You can go online for our friends at Stretch Zone by going to stretchzone.com. You can call the nearest location. There's several of them we'll go through, or you can just visit them in person from the list below. There are 13 locations in PA and New Jersey. Adam, tell them about the PA locations.
Yeah, it was just an excellent to see Austin. He's phenomenal. He's the man. I mean, I always know I'm in for it when I go in because I want to be stretched and I want to feel good when I come out. And there's nothing like it. He's phenomenal. At Devon, Jared, who I've seen there, which is right next to the Whole Foods and the Orange Theory. Haverford, which is like no more than 10 minutes from there, right near the shopping complex there. South Philly on Washington Ave, Montgomery County, Elkins Park Plaza, Upper Dublin, Drescher off 611 near my mom, Feasterville, Warrington, PA, which just opened a few weeks ago. Look forward to visiting that one. Cherry Hill near you, Mount Laurel near Greg Cosell, Franklin Lakes, Northfield if you're on the way down the shore, and Princeton, New Jersey.
All those great locations to get a stretch at our friends at Stretch Zone. All right, so the next guy we have under the offensive microscope, Adam, I actually think is more under the microscope than even Johnny Wilson because he was a higher pick from the same class, and there are 2 areas where the Eagles are hoping to get some production from him, and honestly, last year he gave them production in 0 areas. So you're kind of on the clock and under the microscope at the same time because there's expectations in year 2 for Ainias Smith, who is both a wide receiver and a punt returner. And Adam, if things are right with him, he's probably he is, no question, he's their most natural slot receiver on the roster.
Yeah, he returned punts, a lot of them, 82 in college. They used him as sort of a people can no, he's not Deebo Samuel. We know that. All I'm saying is very similar role. He actually had one season, scored 4 rushing touchdowns at Texas A&M. Greg Cosell really likes him. We talked to an area scout recently who had his area, the Texas A&M, the Southwest area, and said he loved this physicality. Very built well at 190. He's not fast, but he's got short area quickness. He's a very intriguing player, but unfortunately, because of the number of foot injuries he had last season with the Eagles, he didn't really contribute. He's another guy. I am looking forward because fans always ask, okay, what about what's going on here with the slot role? Do they need a slot receiver? Do they have one? Well, this guy could be it.
Yes, absolutely. And he started to perform better. I know Andrew talked to him a lot. He had a bad OTAs, bad, and then also had an injury in camp. But at the last 2 weeks of camp, he was much better at catching the ball, looking more natural, calming down. In fact, Ainias even said the injury helped him because it just allowed him to take his mind off things, watch from the sideline, get driven, and come back better. So he's got an opportunity ahead of him to really get some good playing time. If he can really show that from the slot, he can catch the ball, he can run block, he can do all these great things.
Sure.
But the first thing is you have to be sure-handed. You have to be dependable. You have to catch the ball when it's thrown to you.
For sure. Look, he should be getting a chance to compete for the punt return job. I know they're going to have a number of guys there, but overall, Ainias Smith definitely under the microscope. Oh yeah, Greg Cosell's. Greg's talked about him a lot. Greg really likes him, but guys got to go. Aeneas Smith has got to get on the field.
Now we got to get Greg to start calling him Aeneas instead of Aeneas.
Aeneas, I know. When they drafted him, I think we actually had a pronunciation guide, so we knew what it was.
Yeah,
we knew it was Aeneas. Although I think a couple times I call him Aeneas because Aeneas Williams, Hall of Famer.
Well. That's right.
And Aeneas Williams. Smith, not Aeneas Smith.
No, Aeneas Smith.
Right. I just did it. Aeneas Smith from Texas A&M.
But you were foreshadowing. That's what you were doing. You were foreshadowing because the next guy we're going to talk about is a Williams. He is a new player. He's also a wide receiver and a returner himself. So that's where the confusion might have come in. It's Avery Williams, who, if not for Nick Sirianni salivating over this guy, I don't know if we would have paid much attention to the free agent signing that he was, because he hasn't really produced very much in the NFL, and he's kind of moved around. He's played some different positions, but per Nick, they have a role for him. They want him to be this, returner / gadget players. Who was the guy? Was it offensive weapon that got from Michigan? Denard Robinson, right?
Denard Robinson, OW. They put on. Boy, did that miss? Was he a second round pick?
I think he was. Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't work. Yeah, that one didn't work. But so with Avery Williams, he started his career off as a corner, and then he got moved to running back. And the Eagles are looking at him as a receiver, but it's really a slot receiver. And you're really looking at him as a gadget player and someone who could return punts or kicks. We know he was dealing with some sort of injury, undisclosed injury, during the latter portion of OTA. So we'll see what he looks like early on in training camp. But they only gave him $400,000 fully guaranteed, but that's really not a big deal. But they really do have something in mind for him. And as you said, and this goes back to the owners' meetings, Nick spoke about Avery Williams more than pretty much any player at that owners' meetings in March. Mm-hmm. Pretty interesting.
I know we got asked this once a while back, and I'm not sure if we ever officially addressed it, but because he has played some corner in the NFL, I think someone asked us if there were any plans to play him at corner in with the Eagles, and I don't think that's. Yeah, he's been a running back and a cornerback, right? I've not heard anything about cornerback usage. No. And if we've learned anything about Vic Fangio, Vic likes these tall physical corners, and this guy would not fit in that realm, I don't think.
Well, he would be a slot, and look, but what I've learned though, you never know what a coach is thinking. When Troy Brown was moved from receiver to corner one year because the Patriots are short a corner. Now, I give Troy Brown credit. They gave him an area, just cover this area in their zone defense. I remember watching the tape of it at NFL Films, and I was just like, wow. He might have kept his receiver number. I don't remember, number 80, I think he was.
Yep.
But, man, I've learned, listen, you never know what a coach is thinking. Look, who the hell knew that Vic would move Zach Bond to inside backer? Like, he never played it before.
Mm-hmm.
Although on Exciting Mike's, you could hear on the Exciting Mike's pod that show that DeJean does with who is it with Reed Blankenship?
Yeah,
you hear him talk about it. He actually the first year was a COVID year, and they moved him to linebacker, and he had never played it before, so it was an edge rusher.
Right.
And it didn't last very long, but in the end, with Avery Williams, they see him a specific way as a receiver. He obviously could carry the ball. Do they need him to carry it? No, but as a changeup, you never know. This is what training camp. What's great about training camp? We get this. The real thing's going to happen. You're going to know at least what their thinking is. It doesn't mean they're going to do it in the regular season, but if they do it in training camp, now it's definitely in their arsenal to use it if they need to call upon it. Whereas if you do it in OTAs and you don't do it in training camp, then you're probably not going to do it.
Right. All right. Good stuff. So that is Avery Williams. We'll see another kind of guy who will be exciting to watch, especially when the pads come out and the preseason games, to see if he can give a little juice to that return game. Because I'm guessing they're not going to be using him as a offensive gadget weapon role too much in the preseason because you're not trying to advertise that.
To give it up. Yeah, it's a great point. Well, that's what I meant about training camp. That's what I've seen over the years going to these camps where you see anything special. Like it's just something different, some weird, you might see a halfback option. It's whatever club, you see in training camp. Maybe they don't use it till week 15. I should write this stuff down just to see if a team ever uses it. Saw this at this camp. Wonder if they'll ever use it. Then they use it.
There you go. All right. Our last guy on the offensive line, acquired in a trade, the C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade from Houston, Kenyon Green, who, as we've said many times, this guy was not an overdrafted guy when he was the top interior offensive lineman drafted 4 years ago. I mean, he was legit, just hasn't panned out. Plus, he's had injuries, but even when healthy, he has not played well. And if you can't figure it out with Jeff Stoutland as your coach, and some haven't, Warmack never did, and a couple of guys, not every single guy who's come under Stoutland has, had their career revived. But if he can't, then it's kind of like now or never for him.
Yeah, last year was a rookie deal, just under $1.4 million, fully guaranteed at signing. It doesn't mean they'll keep him. That's not enough to keep the guy on the roster if he doesn't do well. But their hope is at least could you be maybe the backup right or left guard? That to me at this point would be at least getting something out of him. Because man, that trade that they made with Houston doesn't look great so far. But let's get through training camp first with Kenyon Green and see if he could win a job.
Yeah, I mean, we know why that trade happened. They don't have to pay the salary. I don't think they definitely expected. They certainly didn't expect Green was going to come in here and waltz into the right guard job. That he was like a throw-in for the trade, and we'll see. We'll see if the resurrection can happen. But you make a great point. Ordinarily, if you trade for a guy like this and he's got $1.3 million guaranteed, he's probably going to make it as a backup, even if he's not good enough to win your starting job. But the Eagles have brought in so many linemen through the draft and even some of their free agency, like Matt Pryor coming back, that you're right. I think that they wouldn't be afraid. Howie wouldn't be afraid to take the dead cap as if he felt he had 9 or 10 guys that were just better than Tyler Green and more worth investing their future in. Yeah,
because when you look at it, you got Keegan. I know he didn't really contribute last year, but he's going to have a chance to make the team. He was a 5th rounder last year. Pryor's on a 1-year deal. Kenyon Green's contract expires after the season. We know Kennard could play guard if you need him to. And Brett Toth, yes, he could play just about every position. I didn't say very well, but he could play every position. He's still here. Stout sees something in him. So they're not going to hand Kenyon Green a job this fall. He's going to have to earn it, to be honest with you. That I think that's pretty clear right now.
Yeah, agreed. Great stuff. Good stuff. I like this big picture look at offensive players on the Eagles. We're under the microscope. We'll do it again for defensive players. We'll continue to have our NFC East preview coming out. So it'll be a fun week and a half, 2 weeks, 3 weeks as we lead up till training camp here on Inside the Birds. That's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds.